Me and my sister have never been extremely close. She has always been the successful one when it came to school, career, etc. She easily makes well over 10 times my salary, goes on fancy trips, and other things that I could never afford to do. She is unbearably competitive about everything to the point that I just stopped really interacting with her outside of family gatherings. On top of that, my situation with my parents was heavily strained for most of my late teens, early 20s. I was gay, and my parents had trouble with that. However, over the last 5 years, I put a lot of effort into rebuilding this relationship because it means a lot to me, and I wanted my daughter to have grandparents. We grew a lot closer during COVID as I regularly helped them. Over 2 years ago, I gave birth to my beautiful daughter through IVF. Pregnancy hit me hard, and frankly, it is something I never ever want to do again in my life. We are content with having an only child. At Christmas last year, my sister made me a proposition, asking me to act as a surrogate for her because pregnancy would massively hurt her career. She also does not want to adopt because she wants a child of her own. In fact, she wants multiple children. I politely refused for a number of reasons, mostly because, well, I don't want to go through pregnancy again. I thought that was the end of it. In July, she flew our entire family out for a week at her fancy new cottage. Realistically, the entire trip was her trying to guilt me into acting as a surrogate. When we refused, it led to a massive heated argument, and she said we needed to leave. My parents were on my side when we talked about it after at that time. In August, she tried to make amends. Then she offered to now pay me to act as a surrogate. At this point, I told her off hard, and I said I wanted nothing to do with her. This weekend, I saw my parents, and honestly, I feel betrayed. When we were having dinner, my mother tried to bring it up again. I very plainly explained, it is my body, and I don't care how much money she offers me, but I am not doing it. My mother made some pretty crappy comments about how I am depriving her of more grandkids and how I am being selfish. We left. My partner has my back. But I am at the point now where I feel the only way moving forward is to just cut my entire family out of my life. My partner's family is non-existent, as she was pretty much disowned by them when we became engaged. Is there any sort of hope? Or should I just cut my losses? I am not acting a surrogate. Update. Thank you all for your advice, caring, and wisdom. I am going to try to talk to my parents once more when I calm down. And if they double down on this, then I am going to go no contact with them. My rule is, if they push it or suggest it anyway again, then that's it. As for my sister, I am already no contact, so I will keep it that way. I need to go to work now, but I will read any messages later tonight after work. Thank you all for your suggestions, support. It means a lot to me. She has plenty of options beyond you. She could pay someone else to be her surrogate. I honestly don't think it's a good idea for family to surrogate for each other. A few years ago, I found out that my wife of 10 years had been cheating on me with a coworker. We had 2 kids, her daughter, my stepdaughter, and my daughter, her stepdaughter. My job requires me to travel to different countries 1 week a month. The affair had been going on for a year or so, and I found out by going through her phone. I planned to confront her, but I knew she would lie at my face, as she had done that all that time during her affair. I loved this woman very much, and as much as I wanted to try to reconciliation, the evidence I had found on her phone, I knew this was not salvageable. I was also afraid that if I asked for a divorce, I would be very much screwed during divorce due to the divorce policy in my country that favors women a lot. So I hatched a plan to escape in one of the countries that I work for. Only my 2 sisters and a few close friends knew where I was, and only found out in the latter stages of my plan. I only had 4 months to execute my plans with the help of my lawyer, separating my money from our joint account and moving them to a new offshore account, selling some of my assets, including my car, getting a visa for my daughter, printing out the screenshot of their messages, looking for a new job in a new country, finding a new affordable apartment in a new country. Of course, I was very careful not to leave any breadcrumbs trail, and when the right time came, I sent all the copies of the screenshot I had to her parents and her job, exposing her affair before me and my daughter left, deleted all our social media, and changed our phone numbers. I made more income than her, I paid all the bills, and I knew she could hardly afford to live in our marital home. Anyway, it's been 2 years since I left. It's been hard for us, but we have pulled it through with my daughter in 2 years. I haven't seen my wife until last week when I get an email. She knew where I lived and was in the country and was wondering if we could meet and talk. I ignored the email, but the following day I find her at the door of my apartment. She begs to come in and only wants to talk. I let her in, and the first thing she blurts is, "Sorry," and she breaks down crying. She looked miserable, had lost weight, her face looked like a depressed person, and she didn't even put on much makeup like she usually did when I was with her. She told me that the affair was the worst decision of her life, and she has been suffering the consequences since the day I left. Her family disowned her, she got fired, her friends hated her, and she was more than willing to do anything to get me back. She was literally on her knees holding my leg crying. She told me that she hasn't been with the other guy since then and has not been with anyone else since she only wants me, and that I will always be the love of her life and soulmate. I shed some tears and asked her how she found me. She told me that she reconnected with an old college friend who's a PI and hired her to find me. And then I asked where she's living, and she told me that she left her daughter with her sister and she is living in a hotel. I told her I will think about it, just to get her to leave my house. The thing is, I still love her very much, even though she caused me pain. And she used to be the most caring, loving, and thoughtful woman I have ever met until the affair. And I think she has suffered enough, even though my plan was not to make her suffer. I only exposed her so that she couldn't make up lies about me and that people could understand why I left. I am just wondering if I should give her another chance. Here's the thing. She doesn't want you back. She wants you to come back so she no longer has to face the consequences of her own actions. If you go back, you will only get used. It's also completely possible that if you go back to that country, your wife will file for divorce and you will end up screwed like you were afraid you'd be in the first place. I, 29 female, have been best friends with Jessica, 28 female, for 15 years. We went to the same high school, same university, travel together frequently, and see each other once or twice a week. Recently, we had a big fight that caught me off guard, and I could use some perspective. I guess this started months ago, but it all came to a head yesterday. In July of this year, Jessica asked me if I wanted to go see her favorite band in another state, an 11-hour drive away. I told her I would go, and my budget was $250 for tickets, since we also had to pay for fuel, hotel, food, while we were gone. When she bought our tickets, she completely blew my budget because she wanted better seats and ended up spending $600 each without talking to me. I was really annoyed, but she was begging me to come along and said it would mean the world to her if I could make it work. So we came to a compromise where I would pay her $250 in cash and cover our hotel expenses. We had fun, but even with our compromise, I spent more than I had budgeted for. The silver lining of that trip was I met a really great guy, Ben, 42 male, at a bar after the show, and Jessica and I spent the rest of the evening hanging out with him and his friends. She said she had the best time and wanted to come back to this city again. After we got home, Ben offered to pay for an airline ticket for me to come back for a proper date. I didn't feel comfortable accepting that from a stranger, but I did want to see him again, so I decided to drive back to his city and find a cheap Airbnb for the weekend. I asked Jessica if she wanted to come along, as she had mentioned enjoying it last time, and she did. And I told her in advance that I had plans on Saturday night with Ben, but if there was anything she wanted to do, then we could before or after. She was excited and said that she would just find a Tinder date while I was busy, and she wanted to go to an amusement park the next day. I had an amazing date, but Jessica's night apparently didn't go well. The next day at the amusement park, she was very standoffish and irritated with me. When we got home, she seemed to be back to normal. Fast forward to now. Jessica's birthday is on September 21st. She decided that she wanted to go on a road trip with me and a few other friends. She said that she was planning it for Columbus Day weekend and to make sure I booked it off. Ben also asked if I wanted to come down for another visit soon and offered to fly me. I told him to book whatever was most convenient for him, because he was paying, as long as it wasn't the weekend of Jess's party. He ended up booking my tickets for the weekend of September 21st, so we could attend a play that weekend. It's Jessica's actual birthday, but not party, which I figured was fine as we had no plans. Except when I told her. Jessica freaked out on me. She said she told me to be here for her birthday. I assumed she meant the trip, not the actual day of her birth, and that I was a bad friend for going with Ben to this play on her birthday because I knew how much she wanted to see it. We had tried and failed to get tickets once before. She also said I ruined the last 2 trips we went on because every time we got out, I get attention and leave her in the dust, which is not true. The first time we were all out together, And the second time, she knew I had plans before she agreed to come. Prior to that, I had been in a relationship for 3 years. She also brought up a trip we went on last year where I got groped by a man as proof. She said that she hopes I don't disappoint her again, and I owe her a great birthday for the last 2 times we went away, and it was all about me. Ever since then, she has also been grouchy with me, hardly texting me when we used to text every day. When we go out with friends, she is very standoffish to me, but nobody else. She also said she doesn't want to hear anything about Ben. We are continuing to see each other, and he has been amazing. Then, this week, she drops her birthday plans to our friends, and it looks like it's going to cost me upwards of $1,000 again this time. I didn't have that kind of money laying around, and I don't want to go on this trip if she's mad at me, and it's going to be awkward. I told her I didn't know if I could afford it. She said I could obviously afford to take all these trips to see Ben, but those haven't cost me anything. I know if I don't go, she will get even madder and probably nuke the friendship, at least for a while. I don't know where this came from, but I feel like she is being very entitled in expecting me to spend this much on a birthday to begin with. This is only my perspective, but I really don't think I did anything too egregious. We are also almost 30 years old. What should I do? So, are you a friend or a bank? What are you getting out of this friendship? Because she's shown you many times that you are not a priority to her, unless you're spending money to make her wishes come true. I'm writing this as I sit in our rented oceanfront cottage on the coast of Maine. My wife is somewhere in a rented car or sitting at an airport trying to get back home to Minnesota. I don't know where she's gone. She just asked me to drop her off at a small airport terminal that also has rental cars. We have 2 more days of our 7-day vacation, driving up and down the coast eating oysters, visiting the lighthouses, and going sailing. The whole of our trip has been fantastic, up until last night, precisely between when our waitress asked if we would like to see a dessert menu and when the menu showed up. We had been having a blast for 5 days, with 0 disagreements. I drove and she held the map, randomly wandering the coast. She would say, "Turn here, let's see what's down this road. Let's stop at this stand to grab lobster, oysters, fudges. Let's go see this lighthouse," etc. It was fantastic. Then, yesterday happened. First, we were hiking a national park when she spotted some mushrooms that she wanted to identify. So she steps off the trail and straight into a pile of human crap. No big deal. We laughed it off, got her cleaned up, and beat about how disgusting people are. We drove to our next romantic cottage by the sea, which turned out to be a room in a mobile home without TV or air conditioning. No big deal. We teased each other about how the place was haunted by the ghosts of Dwight Schrute's ancestors. We moved on to dinner at a golf club, which we were subtly informed that we did not have the class to dine at such an establishment. Duck those pretentious a-holes, we agreed, and had a great dinner at a restaurant more in line with our pay grade. And then, the waitress asks if we would like dessert. She says yes. Immediately, she turns to me and asks why I'm always judging her. She starts shouting. She's yelling at me, "Why do you think you are better than me?" She's pissed that I left a $10 tip out of my own pocket for the housekeeping instead of both of us leaving the tip. She gets pissed that I don't like sweets. She tells me that she knows I think she is a pig. I don't, nor is she overweight. Keep in mind, this whole time I have said nor indicated anything. This was just a sudden explosion. My jaw hanging in disbelief the whole time. I realize this is getting bad, as does the waitstaff, so I quickly pay the bill and we leave. Once in the car, she starts yelling that she wished my dog was dead. She's yelling how taking a week off of work is costing her thousands, while my only cost was my half of the trip, along with reiterating everything that she was going off about in the restaurant. I'm being quiet, trying not to say anything that would escalate her. We get back to our room. She then says her diamond wedding ring isn't worth the $200 it would take to fix it. It had a scratch. She then takes her ring off and throws it into the ocean. This hurt me the most. I spent everything I had on that ring when I was 33 and proposed to her. We were both broke at the time, and $3,000 was all the money I had then. After this, I walked away, hurt and broken. We remained distant and didn't talk for the rest of the night. This morning, she asked if I would give her a ride, which I said I would. That ride turned out to be to the airport. I dropped her off and haven't heard from her since. The thing is, this isn't the first time something like this happened, not by far. Last winter, I had chartered a sailboat in Florida for her and I to do a long sail to the Dry Tortugas and back. I left our home a few weeks early to prep the boat and plan the passage. She flew down on the day of our departure, got on the boat, and within an hour of leaving for our 22-hour sail, she loses it. She starts yelling about how she can no longer live with my dog in our house. She's crying and screaming. We aren't fighting. She's just doing her thing. An hour later, she's at the airport going home. I could go on and on with these stories. Missed flights to the Caribbean because she had to clean the stove at 6 a.m. Not showing up to family events because the dog needed a bath. It's like she only allows things to be good between us. As soon as something starts turning into great, she has to sabotage things by having one of her outbursts. I don't understand it. None of these issues that she brings up are real. They are things that she makes up in her head. We have been through counseling in the past where we were taught to use statements like, "I'm making up that you are feeling. Is this true?" in order to circumvent issues like these. But she's not using this approach, bottling up her feelings and blowing up instead. I love my wife with all my heart. She's not perfect, nor am I. 95% of the time, things are good between us. She is beautiful, intelligent, and successful. Please don't call her a nut. Please don't say, "Run, don't walk." Please tell me your experiences if you have been in my position or hers. Please tell me if you have overcome issues like these. Thanks, Internet. Your wife is not a nut. She is mentally ill. She is sick and she needs a therapist. If this only happens on vacations, then something about being away from home is triggering this. She needs professional help.